They were really very unobjective in their broadcasting, and that continues like for 3-4 days. And I think until they did not stop doing that until President Bush came out and said that you cannot victimize Arab Americans or Muslim Americans, and they are citizens like as everybody else. And until he stepped into and went and visited the mosque in Washington D.C., until that minute, the media was like targeting basically Muslims and Arabs. And until today, actually, we still have, until this time, there is a lack of understanding, a lack of really presentation of the Muslims within the media into what is really Islam is about. We still are being blamed for what is really happening and for what happened before. And we still think that the media hasn't been objective on reporting accurately on Islam and Muslims and on what has really happened, on what happened after New York and Washington.
How did it make you feel to hear many people were targeted for retaliation because of their skin color and the way they dress?
I think about it. I think it's an awful experience that I don't wish for nobody to go through it, whether Muslim or Arab or Palestinian or any human being. It's an awful experience to be targeted because of your religion. It's an awful experience to be targeted because of the way you dress, or to be targeted because of your color. I think it's a very awful experience where you have to get into the point that you have to pay your life as a cost of your race or religion that you carry.
Even non-Muslims and non-Arabs were targeted for hate crimes simply because they happen to look different or have an accent. Many people have likened these events to what happened to Japanese Americans during World War II after Pearl Harbor was attacked.
This country had gotten over the kind of fear and hostility that led to the Japanese internment camps during World War II. Unfortunately, I don't think that this country has really gotten over that kind of response. And I was very frightened when, as soon as I heard that Muslims and Arabs were possibly implicated in this, I was very, very frightened that it would just literally pull the hoods off of, so to speak, the racism in this country.
U.S. airports have been using racial profiling for suspected hijackers for several years. But since September 11th, there has been a heightened sense of security that has resulted in an increased screening of Arab, Muslim, and Middle Eastern-looking passengers. How do you feel about that? And do you think it is appropriate during these times, or is such profiling far too great an abuse of civil liberties?
I definitely think that racial profiling is an abuse of civil liberties. It's a very, very bad thing in this country. I think that here in the 20th century, we should have come much, much further than looking at someone and making an assumption that this person's bad because of how they look, or this person's bad because they have a certain kind of accent, or that this person is incapable of this job simply because they have a handicap or some disability that is visible.
We asked Shireen Sinar, who is paying close attention to issues related to Arab and Muslim civil liberties, what she thought about the airline's use of racial profiling.
I think the government should be doing things which generally maybe subject people to more checks at an airport. I don't like the fact that it's doing it specifically for certain people with certain last names, certain facial colors, certain ethnic identities. I think that's wrong. I think the majority of the American population doesn't feel that it's it could be interrogated, and so it just doesn't think it's a big deal. It's fine for us, for Americans, to feel that they can sacrifice someone else's civil liberties.
The fact that the terrorists who hijacked and flew the airliners into the World Trade Center and Pentagon were Arabs who followed the religion of Islam has engendered in many the false impression that Islam is a violent religion that condones these acts of terrorism. Furthering this perception is the small but vocal number of Muslims who consider these suicide bombers martyrs. We asked a local Muslim leader or imam, what he thought about suicide bombing and the idea of martyrdom in Islam. Imam Tahir Anwar was raised in San Jose, California, but studied to become a hafiz, one who memorizes the Holy Quran, at an Islamic madrasa or university in India. He is now the religious director of the South Bay Islamic Association in San Jose.
It needs to be clarified very much. Suicide is haram in Islam. Under no circumstances can suicide become, and can anyone make it correct. We need to understand what actually a shaheed is, who is a person who actually enters paradise, or who is a person who is considered to be a martyr. From what we learn from the ahadith, the sayings of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the Quran, we learn that a person who gives his life for the sake of Allah, for the sake of God, is considered to be a shaheed, and not a person who blows himself up or who, takes the lives of so many other people. For example, in our situation, a person who's hijacked a plane and who's running it into the Twin Towers, from what we understand, he's considered to be doing a suicide, and at the same time he's taking the lives of thousands of people. So from what we have learned from the Quran and the Hadith, he is not considered to be a shaheed or a martyr by any chance, because he is totally a person who has committed suicide, which means he can't be a martyr, and at the same time he's taken the lives of a few thousands of people. A person who is considered to be a shaheed or a martyr, though, is, for example, a person, let's just take for example me, walking down the road to the mosque, and if I were to be attacked, not because of any other reason, if I were to be attacked because of me being a Muslim, or me wearing a cap or having a beard, then maybe because someone might do something harmful to me, and if I were to die, in that situation I would be considered to be a shaheed, because I truly gave my life because of my religion and nothing else. But in the situation, in the current crisis and scenario that we have here, we cannot decide anything. But again, we have to understand that from what we know and from what we see, it's total suicide, and it can't. That person and those persons, whoever they were, cannot be considered to be shaheed or martyrs.
These terrorists obviously had a different way of thinking about martyrdom. The United States government believes that they were brainwashed and trained by Osama bin Laden, a person who was vowed to kill as many Americans as possible. This raises the question of why some Muslims would choose to follow the teachings of such an individual. We asked Adil Iqbal why he thinks Osama bin Laden is so popular among Muslim youth in countries such as Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Iraq.
Osama bin Laden is really popular in the countries that you mentioned, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, etc., because of what the people in those countries think of America. America has a negative foreign policy towards Muslim countries, Iraq, Palestine, Pakistan. In the past, they've seen America be a bad person to their country, have a negative impact on their country. So they have this sort of hate for America. And when they see a person backlashing or doing something against America, they're going to cheer. For example, if we look at how America has handled Iraq right now, people are dying. People aren't allowed to have toothpaste because you might be able to make a bomb out of it. The Iraqi people don't want to blow up things. They just don't like what America is doing to them.
Why do many Americans have the perception that there is so much hate for the United States in the Muslim world? Dr. Hamid Mavani is the religious director of the Islamic Cultural Center in Oakland, California. We asked him to shed some light on this issue.
Because certain factors contribute to this culture of hate against America and the West. One of them is a sense of inequity. They perceive, whether it is true or not, but their perception is that the American policy has not been fair and just in handling their grievances. And this was clearly exploited by bin Laden in this recent video that was released by the Al Jazeera